Today we are going to talk about how to solve and graph inequalities. The first and most important thing to do is to identify the number that goes with the variable. If the variable is a positive number, we just solve the problem regularly. So let's go through and identify all of the numbers with the variable. In this first example right here, we have 7x minus 19 is less than 16. So the number with the variable is the 7. So 7x is that first thing we're looking at. So let's move on to the next one. We have 19 plus 4x is less than 3. So to identify the number with the variable, that would be that 4 and the x. That positive right in front of it does go with it. The next one, 2x minus 21, is greater than or equal to 3. So the number with the variable would be that 2x. And the last one, 9x minus 7, is less than or equal to 38. So the number with the variable would be that 9x. So now let's add a few more notes. Looking back at that first example, 7x minus 19 is less than 16. We need to add a few notes. So this is a positive 7, which means we don't flip. And that means we do not flip that inequality sign. The next thing we need to know about this is we're going to shade to the left. Shade to the left. And the last thing, we need to make sure we have an open circle when we graph it on a number line, because it is not also equal to. Now let's look at that next example. 19 plus 4x is less than 3. So we need to make sure we know it is a positive 4. So we do not flip. When I say that, I mean do not flip the inequality sign. We also need to know that we need to shade to the left. And it would be an open circle because it is not also equal to. Now looking at the next one, 2x minus 21 is greater than or equal to 3. It is a positive 2, which means we do not flip that inequality sign. We would shade to the right, and we would have a closed circle, meaning that it is shaded in because our inequality sign says also equal to. And the last one, 9x minus 7, is less than or equal to 38. So this is a positive 9. We would shade to the right. And we would have a closed circle since it is also equal to. And looking back, since it is a positive 9, we would not flip the inequality sign. So here we have our next rule. If the variable has a negative number, you must flip the sign the opposite direction, then solve the problem. So let's look at an example to see what we're exactly talking about. So we have negative 3x plus 4 is greater than 31. So our number with the variable is what we identify first. Since that is a negative number, we have to flip our inequality sign the opposite way. Since it is a negative number with our variable, we have to flip our inequality sign the other way. So let's make a few more notes. We have negative 3 means flip sign. We would shade to the left since we had to flip the sign. And it would be an open circle because it is not also equal to. So let's look at our next example. Negative 5y plus 6 is greater than or equal to 61. So we look at the number with the variable first, that's negative 5y. Since it is a negative 5, we would flip the sign. So that means we flip that inequality sign the other way. And we still keep that equal to at the bottom. Now let's finish this out. We would shade to the left. And it would be a closed circle since it could also be equal to. Now let's look at our next example. Negative 3 minus 2x is less than or equal to negative 5. So the number with the variable is a negative 2. Since it is a negative 2, we're going to flip the sign. We would, so flip the sign here. We would still keep the equal to right below it. We would shade now to the right. And it would be a closed circle since it could also be equal to. Now our last example, 9 minus x is greater than 10. So we look at the number with the variable, which is a negative 1, even though it doesn't show it there. Negative x still means negative 1x. So there we have a negative 1, which means we flip the sign. So we have to flip it the opposite direction. Now we are going to shade to the left. And it would be an open circle, meaning not filled in, because it is not equal to. So let's look at our first example here. We have 6m minus 7 is less than 41. So we look at the number with the variable first. That's at positive 6m. Since it is positive, we do not have to flip the sign. So from there, we need to know that we shade left. And it would be an open circle. So now let's actually solve this problem, and it's going to be the exact same way we solved equations. We start by drawing a line down the equal sign, or here the inequality sign. We then have to do the opposite of addition first. So since we have a negative 7 or minus 7, we have to do plus 7. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So negative 7 and positive 7 cancel each other out. Over here, 41 plus 7 would be 48. We're going to bring that 6m directly down. Now we have to undo multiplication. So we divide by 6 over here. We divide by 6 over here. These cancel. 48 divided by 6 is just 8. So we get m is less than 8. Now we need to graph it on our number line. So we said it was an open circle, and it's going to be on 8. Open means we do not fill it in. And then we are going to shade to the left, as we wrote at the top. So we shade to the left. And make sure we draw that arrow. That way we know that shades all the way to the left forever and forever. Here we have our next example. We have negative 3t plus 9 is greater than negative 21. So we look at the number with the variable first. We have a negative 3t. Okay, so this is negative, which means we have to flip sign. So we're going to flip the sign. Then we can continue with our problem regularly. We know that we need to shade left, and we're going to have an open circle because it is not also equal to. Now we can solve the problem just like we normally would. We draw a line down the equal sign or the inequality sign. We do the opposite of addition or subtraction. So here we have plus 9, so we're going to do minus 9. What we do to one side, we do to the other. Positive 9 and negative 9, they cancel out. Negative 21 minus 9, so that's like adding two negatives there. So we have negative 21 and negative 9, which would be negative 30. We're going to bring down that negative 3t. Very important you bring down that negative sign. From there, we're going to do the opposite of multiplication. So we're going to divide by a negative 3. You do have to remember to divide by the negative part of that number as well. So these cancel out, but what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we're going to divide by negative 3. Negative 30 divided by negative 3 equals a positive 10. So we get t is less than 10. So we look back at our rules. We said we need an open circle on 10, and we're going to shade to the left. Shade to the left. Make sure we include the arrow at the end of our shading. That way we know the line goes on forever to the left.